Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Conflict Front Stories channel. Please subscribe and like my videos. Your support truly helps us continue bringing deep diving, balanced, and carefully researched content from around the world's conflict zones. Today's story begins with a moment that many people remember vividly. A cold morning, distant artillery echoes rolling across flat fields, families packing whatever they can carry, and geopolitics suddenly becoming personal. But behind those scenes of fear and uncertainty lies a deeper story, one shaped by decades of tension, competing interests, and the complicated role Moscow continues to play in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. Let's look closely at how these tensions evolved, how they shape today's reality, and what the future might hold as Eastern Europe stands at a crossroads. In the exterior view of this conflict, the first thing to understand is that no event erupted out of nowhere. The dynamic between Russia and Ukraine has been entangled in centuries of shared history, political influence, cultural overlap, and strategic rivalry. But when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, a new chapter began, one in which Ukraine became independent, and Russia began redefining its identity and influence in a changing world. Those early years brought hope, uncertainty, and quiet friction. Over time, this friction hardened into a power struggle. The story of Moscow's role today cannot be understood without those earlier years when alliances shifted, borders felt fragile, and national identities were being rewritten. Externally, the visible part of the conflict lies in the military operations, territorial disputes, and diplomatic standoffs. But behind these visible events are interior factors, sharp pressures building inside governments, inside societies, and inside people's minds. Moscow's strategic decisions are shaped by internal political considerations, security priorities, and long-standing fears of NATO expansion. Ukraine, on the other hand, has been driven by a vision of sovereignty, democratic transformation, and a desire to align more closely with Europe. These internal drivers are just as important as the battles themselves, because they dictate motivations, calculations, and the willingness to compromise, or escalate. As we move deeper into this story, imagine the border regions where infrastructure once used to connect communities, roads, bridges, industrial hubs, have now become front lines. The exterior reality in these areas is stark. Soldiers on patrol, damaged buildings, and uncertainty clouding daily life. Yet inside homes and shelters, interior conversations reveal a different layer of the conflict. Parents explaining to children why they must leave, grandparents recalling previous generations who lived through similar turmoil, and individuals wondering when normal life will return. These human stories are threads woven into a much larger geopolitical tapestry. From Moscow's perspective, the calculations are built on a mix of historical memory, strategic geography, and national prestige. Officials in the Russian government often express concerns about territorial buffer zones, the encroachment of Western influence, and maintaining what they see as their rightful sphere of interest in Eastern Europe. The interior mindset in Moscow is influenced by state narratives, security doctrines, and the belief that Ukraine's political alignment directly affects Russia's future. This internal reasoning shapes exterior actions, from military movements to diplomatic statements, that the world closely watches. The Ukrainian perspective, however, is equally shaped by internal identity and aspirations. The desire for independence is not new, it's linked to long cultural traditions and historical struggles. Many Ukrainians see their future anchored in democratic reform, economic opportunities with Europe, and freedom from external interference. In their interior dialogues, questions revolve around sacrifice, resilience, and the cost of defending sovereignty. These conversations influence political decisions and the nation's determination to resist pressure. Let's step again into an exterior scene: international summits, urgent press conferences, negotiators rushing between rooms, and leaders trying to prevent escalation. The world's involvement is not only humanitarian but also strategic. Eastern Europe sits at a critical intersection where energy routes, trade corridors, and military alliances converge. What happens here affects global markets, diplomatic relations, and regional stability. Inside these high-level meetings, interior discussions focus on sanctions, economic leverage, security commitments, and whether compromise is possible without appearing weak. Each decision carries consequences felt far beyond the negotiating rooms. Back in Moscow, the interior political climate shapes how leaders justify their decisions to their citizens. Narratives of protecting Russian speakers, defending national security, and challenging Western influence are reinforced in state media. Externally, these narratives translate into military actions, public speeches, and diplomatic stances. Understanding the tension between internal messaging and external behavior is key to understanding why the conflict continues. Meanwhile, Ukraine's leadership faces its own interior pressures, balancing national unity, maintaining international support, and managing the societal toll of prolonged conflict. Externally, Kyiv presents a strong, determined stance, emphasizing territorial integrity and the right to self-determination. The interior challenge is navigating political differences, emotional exhaustion, and the strain on economic and social systems. Yet the resilience displayed by ordinary Ukrainians continues to be one of the defining aspects of this conflict. As we shift to another exterior moment, picture the towns and cities where international journalists report under difficult conditions, capturing the daily reality of civilians living amid uncertainty. These are the images that shape global understanding, but they only tell part of the story. Inside these communities, survivors share experiences of loss, hope, and determination. They talk about rebuilding even when peace feels distant, and about staying strong despite the constant threat of violence. These interior reflections remind us that this conflict is not only about governments and borders, it's about people. If we walk through the political corridors of Europe, we see another layer of this story. Externally, the European Union responds with sanctions, diplomatic visits, and humanitarian aid. Internally, European governments weigh energy dependencies, domestic politics, and security commitments. Every decision is influenced by public opinion, economic consequences, and fears of broader instability. The interior debates in these countries influence the exterior policies that shape the conflict's trajectory. In Washington, policymakers analyze intelligence, discuss military assistance, and coordinate with allies. Externally, U.S. involvement comes through financial support, weapon shipments, and diplomatic pressure. Internally, debates revolve around budget priorities, global leadership responsibilities, and the long-term implications of supporting Ukraine. These interior discussions play a major role in shaping the exterior dynamics Moscow responds to. Returning again to Russia, the interior socio-economic pressures complicate decision-making. Sanctions impact industries, currency stability, and long-term economic plans. Citizens face rising costs and uncertainty, and these interior realities influence the government's strategies. Externally, Moscow portrays strength, continuity, and defiance, but interior pressures exist beneath the surface. In Ukraine, interior challenges include rebuilding infrastructure, supporting displaced families, and sustaining morale. Externally, the nation works to strengthen alliances, secure international support, and push for diplomatic solutions. The contrast between interior struggle and exterior resilience has become a defining aspect of Ukraine's image on the global stage. As tensions rise and fall, one thing remains constant. Both nations navigate a complex blend of history, identity, politics, and power. The exterior scenes we see in news footage, troops moving, speeches delivered, borders reinforced, are the visible tip of a much deeper interior struggle for national purpose and regional influence. These layers make the conflict difficult to resolve quickly, because each side's motivations run far deeper than short-term objectives. When we take a step back and examine the broader picture, we realize that Eastern Europe's stability depends heavily on understanding the interior motivations behind each exterior action. Without acknowledging these layers, solutions become difficult. Moscow's role is shaped by long-standing fears of losing influence, while Ukraine's fight is rooted in a long-sought vision of independence and self-direction. External alliances, global politics, and international reactions further complicate the path forward. As this story continues unfolding, the world watches closely, aware that the decisions made here will shape global security for years to come. Whether through diplomacy, negotiations, or continued confrontation, the future of Eastern Europe rests on how these exterior and interior forces evolve in the coming years. The conflict involves territory, identity, and power, but above all, it involves people whose lives have been deeply affected. So as we follow the developments, we must remember the voices behind the headlines, the families seeking safety, the leaders making difficult decisions, and the societies navigating turmoil. Understanding Moscow's role means understanding the layers of history, strategy, and perception that shape every move. Understanding Ukraine's struggle means recognizing the courage of a nation fighting for its place in the world. Thank you for staying with us through this deep exploration. If you want more detailed conflict stories like this, make sure to subscribe, like, and share our videos. Your engagement helps us continue shedding light on complex global issues. Stay safe, stay informed, and join us next time on Conflict Front Stories.